Welcome back to Scouting the League. My guest today ran the Hula Bowl last year, and he liked it so much that he started his own game, the American Bowl, which will be on the NFL Network in January. I'm not sure what it says about his mental fitness that he's ready to run a game if he liked running an all-star game that much, having done it myself a couple times. Scott Phillips, welcome to the Scouting the League podcast, buddy.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate you having me, Neil.
Scotty, let's start off the way we always start off. How did you get here? Tell us a little bit about your origin story and kind of how you all got started.
Yeah, so I think you're right. I probably do need a mental health sanity check. I played arena football till I was 28, and somewhere along the way had to get a real job to support the family, and I went into real estate, got out of football completely, built a real estate career, and then in 2021 sold a portion of my company, stepped down as CEO to get back into ball, and had a real good privilege of getting invited to the Senior Bowl Scout School with Jimmy Nagy in 2021. And from there, I met a fellow named Damon Talbot at NFL Draft Diamonds, who said he was looking for, I believe his terms were a football outsider, somebody who knew a little bit about organizational practices and just how to manage people and so on and so forth. And so I jumped in with Damon as kind of his right-hand man, chief of staff for the 2021 season for the Hula Bowl. It was the first year we were on the mainland, actually, in Florida. And learned a ton. I mean, when I tell you I didn't know what the abbreviations and acronyms were, I knew nothing, but it went really well. And in 2022, I came on as I forget my title, what even was, assistant director of scouting or director of scouting for the Toledo Rockets in the Mid-American Conference. And spent the year there. We won the MAC championship. We actually won a bowl game. I don't know if they were ranked at the time, but we beat a ranked Liberty team yeah, in the Boca Raton Bowl. Caden Salter was their quarterback. It was kind of cool. Did that, stayed with Toledo, and volunteered with the Hula Bowl coaching quarterbacks for a couple years. And from Toledo, I got a really late opportunity to be an offensive coordinator at a little Division III school you probably haven't heard of called Westminster College. That's in Youngstown Heights, as I say, just over the border of from Ohio. It's into Pennsylvania. I did that for one season, and then I came back to be the general manager at Kent State. I was in Kent State, kind of in their transitional periods there that they were going through. As you know, they had a coaching change. So when that sort of started to come to light, I had jumped ship a little earlier and asked Damon. I said, "Hey, can I come back and help you with the Hula Bowl? I would love to do that. It's always been a lot of fun." And he said yes, and then proceeded to resign 3 weeks later. So I ended up being the executive director of last year's Hula Bowl with no intention of that being the case. And I'm proud. I think we did a pretty good job. We ran a good staff down there. We had a good coaching staff always. The players had a good experience, and kind of when it was all wrapped up, you sort of looking the staff around you and say, okay, is this fourth year of the Hula Bowl? Is this what we want to continue to do? And what we sort of decided amongst ourselves is that it would be really great if we could get a little more cooperation and endorsement from the NFL. And for whatever reasons, and I don't know what they are, the Hula Bowl's always been kind of an independent entity. Always done a great job when I was there, but just always sort of independent of the league. And for whatever reason, so we went to Roman Oben in the league office and said, hey, what would it take to be on the NFL Network? What would it take to get endorsement of the NFL? What would it take to be part of to effectively like replace the Collegiate Bowl? I say that in air quotes, but as kind of a third all-star game. And he gave us a list, and none of them was promised. Obviously, it was sort of just like, hey, this is what it could look like. And then looked at my staff, and we just kind of started running with it. We checked, said, okay, well, hey, they're giving us kind of a guideline. Let's see what we can do. I mean, maybe it's possible, maybe it's not. And here we are. The American Bowl has been off the ground. 45 players have committed, and there's a whole bunch of sponsors that we never would have imagined having, and it's starting to actually take shape. So it's been pretty cool.
That's exciting stuff. All right, so before we go on, your background is in the MAC, obviously. You've got a lot of roots
Yes.
there. How is the MAC different from other G5 conferences?
Oh man. Listen, and it's changing more and more, Neil. So MAC football, and it's actually funny. I just threw on a shirt today, right? But I got my Kent State Golden Flashes military grade stuff today. Like it in the MAC, you have to do a little of everything. We had a motto my staff at Kent had a motto that was nobody will ever be too good to take out the garbage. So it meant no matter what our title was, coaches, my scouting assistants, my graduate assistants, I had a full-time recruiting on-campus director of recruiting who still works for me now at the American Bowl. We any one of us could do any task. It didn't matter. Like nothing was too small. And I think that's sort of like the MAC doesn't have a lot of money. That's the reality. That doesn't not a lot of money to pay players in this future of evolution of college football or current, I guess. Not a lot of money to pay staff, coaches. Like it's very, very difficult. There's some haves and have-nots in the MAC too. Like Toledo's done a really good job with, the Team Toledo initiative, but and obviously Miami's well funded. But generally speaking, it's on the lower end of funding. So really everyone has to be incredibly versatile. But what's great about that is that if you find a MAC coach or a MAC staffer, like they're so hardworking because there's like no job that they've ever been too good for. Like it's unbelievable. You're not spoiled there because you're not going to get to go to work and just look at portal guys all day, and have music playing. Like, you got 4 hours to look at portal guys, you got 2 hours to clean the toilets. You know what I mean? That's the vibe there. So I love it. And I'll tell you this, there's 13 teams well, I guess it's back to 12 now with NIU leaving. So 12 teams in the MAC right now. Any team can win any year.
Mhm.
Like that's another cool thing. Like Kent State, went 1-11, 0-12. Half their roster left. Everyone who was draft rated left their roster. The coach gets let go. They get an interim head coach who's never been a head ball coach before. The staff is mostly new, people he didn't hire, mind you. And then they go 5-7, and they were like legitimately a deflection away from getting into a bowl game a year after going 0-12 with half their roster. I mean, like those are the kinds of things that's cool about the MAC is that like really because everyone's sort of in that zone, you can win it in any year. You can go to a bowl game in any year, and that's pretty cool. I love working in it.
That's the one point that I've always kind of realized about the MAC is there's not one powerhouse teams where that okay, pencil them in as your first and second place teams, and
Right.
there's a lot of transition every year. That's kind of what makes it exciting, quite frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, you're the American Bowl now, but what's the one thing you're most proud about from last year's effort with the Hula Bowl,
Oh,
especially given the fact that you basically had to board a train that was already underway, you know?
yeah. I mean, look, the Hula Bowl is it's like I say, there's entrepreneurial type companies out there. I own a few back in Cleveland where I live, and the Hula Bowl is always like I think there's like a thrill of kind of a rush of working 24-hour days when it comes time to do it, and you've done it. Like it's a lot of things really fast all the time. The thing that I was most proud of at the end of it was the way the NFL scouts came to me and said to me, "This is the most well organized event that we go to." And I'm sure, like, they're probably blowing smoke a little bit, but like, it makes me feel good to know that like their experience in seeing the players on the field, the access they get to the players, the professionalism by which we conducted things was at a really high level. And then I would say the second one, and for better and worse, we carried this to the American Bowl, so it won't be the Hula this year, but um, being able to work so closely with the NFL's personnel department. So the American Bowl now, but it was the Hula Bowl last year. We were able to get the NFL's PAT test administered at our game, and it's the only place you can get that done besides the NFL Combine. So if you are getting the NFL's PAT done, you're either at the American Bowl or you're at the Combine. That's it. That's all.
Mhm.
And I'm proud of that because they don't do that as a favor to me. They do that because they said, Scott, you guys got us 100% of the people who came took the test. And I
Mhm.
thought that was pretty cool. So we deliver on what we say we're going to do. And actually, in our team motto for the Hula Bowl, certainly it's my team motto, so I'll carry it with me to the American, but was one of our core values for our people at work was we will do what we say we would do, sometimes more, just never less. So if we make a commitment to the NFL that we're going to get 100% attendance at the PAT, then if I got to go pull guys out of their beds, that's what we're doing. They're going to be there. And I was pretty proud of that. So the NFL was real pleased with how we performed, and that's probably my most proud thing about the game last year.
It really was remarkable, Scott, when I got there last year on the first night and walking through the back building. We are conducting meetings and there's video going, and the coaches were going over the
Yeah.
tape. And then you go into the lobby of the main hotel, and it was just full. I don't know how many, you could tell me how many scouts were there, but it was
180.
remarkable. And several teams had multiple scouts there.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
Yeah, everyone was conducting interviews. It just was a very professionally run setting, and it was really impressive for a guy who was doing it for his first year. So I was
No, I appreciate that, Neil.
really,
Yeah,
really made
it
it
was it was
positive
cool.
for me. All right, so the American Bowl, first year operation. You had a little bit more of a head start because you're the one that kind of came up with it, what have you. Still, it's a first year operation. What's been the biggest obstacle so far?
Uh, you know, the biggest obstacle is the fundraising component and getting, I'm an organizational guy. Like I said, 10 years well, 10, 14 years in owning a real estate company, seven of those as CEO. At one point, we were the most valuable real estate franchise in the country. Like I'm not a stranger to organization, business, leading people. Like that's fine. Selling sponsorships to something that doesn't exist yet was a little bit of an uphill climb. And then it's like even after you sell one, then the lawyers go and screw everything up with their opinions on the contract. So it's like, okay, we got these guys in for 100 grand, and then, well, no, we don't. Now they want to analyze everything. So I'd say that's probably the least fun part of the job is the business side of it, and then I don't know, probably letting people down on communications. At the end of the day, even with you and I, like it's tough to find a perfect window of time to communicate. And even while I'm here talking to you, I'm probably going to miss 20 phone calls from agents or Coach Smith or people that I have good relationships with that I want to get back to, but I simply just can't in a day. So that's probably the hardest things is that just keeping up with the communication pipeline, and then I think sponsorship will get easier as time goes on, but it's year one, so we're having to really punch above our weight to make these things happen and keep the game funded.
As you've extended invitations to kids and have reached out to schools with a game that doesn't have name recognition yet because it's brand new, has that been a struggle? Are they kind of like, what's the American
No.
Bowl?
I get a little bit of the what's the American Bowl stuff here and there, but you kind of we had a strategy for that. It wasn't something we didn't go into that blindly. Like, we talk about our experience. Coach Smith and Coach Billick, this is our fifth year working together, the three of us. My most of my staff, it's year two, three, or excuse me, not two, it's year three, four, or five for most of my staff working together. It's a venue, both from a practice field and a hotel venue that we're obviously familiar with and have organized. So, what is a college all-star game? I mean, is it the title of the game or is it the people that run it? And for us, the staff that I needed to run an all-star game at the highest level, at an NFL acceptable level, they came with me. So, that's not a dog to any of the other games, including the one I came from. But it's, if you liked what we did at the last one, you're going to love what we're doing here because, we're doing this one with, a lot more alignment with what the NFL's expectations are. So we've issued, to give you real numbers, we've issued 54 invitations as of today, 47 of them accepted.
Wow.
So I mean, we're not, and many of them probably a dozen with, fifth round draft grades or better. So we've literally had no issue. The only issue we run into is if like they think they're going to get a better game or something like,
Yeah.
Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, which is reasonable. I'd tell my own kid to go to the Senior Bowl, like
Yeah,
by all means. I mean, no issue there.
no doubt.
So,
Now, is that about where you had planned on being at this point, Scott? Are you ahead? Are you behind?
it's hard to say. I didn't really. It feels behind. But I'm also used to the game being 2 weeks earlier, so I'm probably okay. We talked about it last night as a staff, and I was like, I think we're okay. I've got 18 more going out. If we continue to get acceptances at the rate we're at, I suspect the roster will be full by the 20th of December. And then, for me, strategically, I want to leave 15 spots. I'll reach out to the agents and say, hey, look, I'm going to invite your guy as long as dot, dot, dot. And what that means is as long as so and so doesn't make go take a deep run in the playoff. So, um, if you take the top four teams in the playoff, and I'm not predicting anything because I don't watch enough of their whole games to know who's going to win games, but um, if you're in the top two, you really can't participate in the American Bowl. It'll be tough because their game's on the 19th. Our practices start on the 18th. So it'd be like a 1 day show up. It wouldn't make sense. So
Mhm.
you should really play in one of the other two. Um, so, we'll kind of hold those spots if and I wouldn't predict this, but certainly they lost last weekend. If Ohio State loses, I got four guys from Ohio State I'm taking. But if they continue to, go all the way, then we won't be able to get them. So I think we'll be a-okay, I guess is what I'm saying.
Is that emblematic of the number of invitations you sent out to CFP teams as well? I mean, If
Correct.
a lot of a lot of teams that are playing that'll be playing in the playoffs that have players that are getting invites.
There are, and those you don't get to see those, unfortunately, because most teams don't want their announcements
Right.
made. So, if you follow us on Twitter, somebody made a snarky comment on Twitter the other day. I happened to palm where they said, "Oh, there's nobody from any good teams playing." I was like, "No, you dingus, we just can't post those ones because they're in the CFP and their head coaches don't want the distraction."
Right.
So so we have a few, we have a couple from Indiana. I mean, like you can't make it a distraction. So if Indiana makes a run, they get into the top two, then those guys obviously we let them out and there's the next man up ready to roll.
No doubt, no doubt. Okay, so you talked about the Senior Bowl. Let's
Yeah.
talk about your relationship with the other games. Last year, I think there was pretty good partnership. I don't know if I want to call it partnership, but a good relationship, a friendly kind of simpatico with the Shrine.
Mhm.
This year, it's a little changed because of the schedule. Let's talk about that some.
Yeah, still friendly is the word I would use. I mean, Eric and I talk. We talked yesterday for 40 minutes, the day before that for 20. I mean, aside from my family, I think the two people I talk to most of this world are Eric and Drew. So I'd say definitely friendly and collaborative is probably the best word. The only thing that's really different this year is that historically, the way the game stacked out when I was at the Hula Bowl, we were so early. I could send guys anywhere after. You ball out on my field, blah, blah, blah. I'll, help you get an invite to Shrine Bowl, or Senior Bowl. And Shrine was always just kind of like the next game up. So we used to use Shrine. It just made sense because we kind of see it like gold, silver, bronze, or whatever.
Mhm.
This year, we're still doing that, but it's a little harder. Eric and I talk, well, if you take this guy and he balls out, you can get him out to, Frisco, but they'll miss the first day of practice and that travel. So it's a little less, it's a little more clumsy, if that makes sense. It would be my preference this year, and I think Eric's too. If we know who he wants ahead of time, go to the Shrine game, that's fine. I'll get to the next person because getting them up, we run a higher risk of them just practicing with me and then bailing before the game, which isn't good for anybody.
Mhm.
By contrast, this year with the Senior Bowl, with my relationship with Drew, is really good as well. We are actually going to have a bus. I mean, this is, we've talked about it. People know, like, there will be a bus leaving Orlando the morning after our game, about 10:30 a.m. It's a 6-hour drive to Mobile. Have them there before dinner, and charter bus that is. And anyone that Drew wants will be boarding that bus. And that's the way that's going to go. He'll know after the practice week is done. He's sending a scout down, and he'll know which guys he wants to take after our game. So we're hoping it'll be no less than eight, or excuse me, no less than 12, no more than 18 off our roster. So, and again, that's not, we would do that with either game. It just so happens that, this year it aligns a lot better with the Shrine, or with the Senior Bowl than the Shrine game.
That'd be remarkable if you had 18 American bowlers heading to.
Well, I mean, truth be told, Neil, like it's twofold, right? Like we've punched a little above our weight. I'd say my roster's definitely better than my Hula Bowl roster last year, at least at the moment. Now, you know how this goes. They could get
Oh, yeah.
poached in late, but at the moment, we definitely have more uh, talent thus far. With that being said, the Senior Bowl will run the risk of people not playing in the game. I think that's just, that's the nature of their game. They got a lot of guys that are expected to be first round picks, whether they show up or not.
Right.
And in my game, they tend to try a little. They're trying to just get drafted, period. So, they love the opportunity to show up and play in both.
Now, as I recall, when we talked earlier, when we were on Zoom earlier, you actually or planned to run a shuttle from South Florida to Orlando, kind of to try
Correct.
to get guys. Now, that's an interesting innovation. Talk a little bit more about that, if you would, Scott, and kind of how you came up with that idea.
Yeah, I mean, I that one I stole. I want to say Damon Talbot. Kudos to him. I mean, I inherited that. He made that decision before I was around. But we've built great relationships with some of the athletic performance facilities in the area. Matter of fact, one of them is actually discussing being a pretty high level sponsor with us because we've had such a great relationship with them. And what we do is we send a charter down, one down the East Coast, one down the West Coast of Florida, just kind of accelerate travel because what's the point? They're all down there. Half of them are trained in Florida anyway.
Right.
So one starts in Fort Myers. It goes up the West Coast to Tampa. Makes us pit stop in Tampa. The boys can use the bathroom. It's about 95 minutes, and then it's about another 95 to that's their layover, right? That's another 95 to Orlando from there to the Carib because we're in the southwest corner of Orlando. The hotel is. And Yeah, I mean they haven't. And then the other one just is generally it's in Fort Lauderdale. We'll probably go there again. There's a nice training facility down there. The guys can park in the lot and just kind of leave their cars there for a few days. And we charter them. That one just goes straight from Lauderdale to Orlando, about 3 hours,
Mhm.
240, I think.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean it's been a good process. It's flights are a pain in the butt. Money aside, delays and coordination of who's landing when and all that. 135 people when you count the coaches all descending upon us at the same time isn't the easiest thing in the world, but we make it work.
Mhm. Anyone who's ever run a game's got stories about losing pads en route and
Oh,
bags and
Neil, I'll
countless.
tell you, last year I still feel guilty. It was Toledo where I worked. We had three guys from Toledo. Two of the pads showed up, the other didn't. There was a snowstorm that had ripped through the Midwest, and Jerwan Newton's pads were stuck somewhere in Nashville. I don't know if they ever got them back. I mean, so they had to send out another box. He borrowed gear from someone at UCF or something for the week. I felt terrible, including a helmet.
Mhm.
And then, but I had no option. I mean, I don't know. Box was somewhere in Nashville. It just kept saying, yeah, it's still in the Nashville facility. The other Lance Dixon's and Anthony Torres has showed up. They were all shipped at the same time from the same place.
Never know.
Yeah.
At least UCF was good enough to lend pads.
Yeah.
A
I
lot of
mean,
schools have worked with it didn't want to do that for
let me
liability.
tell you something. If I can make a plug, and no one, I don't know who listens to this thing, but if anybody ever is in the equipment world and needs a plug, Brad Anderson from UCF. Like I've been around, and it's not to say anything bad about anyone else I've been around in the equipment world. That guy is one of one. I've never seen an equipment guy like him. There's literally never a problem. Like he's like funny. He's got a sense of humor about him. Like, he takes everything in stride, like sarcastic, just like
Mhm.
he's kind of one of us. I couldn't imagine doing a bowl game without Brad. I mean, he is, I don't know. If they got rid of him, I don't know. UCF would have to talk me into coming back. He's he is really awesome. So yeah, he bails us out sometimes here and there where he can. Some things he can't do, but
Yeah.
we were able to borrow a helmet, I think, from somebody else. That somebody South Carolina guy had like two helmets, and he gave one to Jerwan, and then the rest of the gear, UCF, including shoes, was able to provide. They were really helpful. So,
Man, the equipment directors are the unsung heroes of the All-Star
bro,
performance. They're
yeah, it's
having to work when
unbelievable.
everyone else is off and just so
Yeah.
much.
No, Brad is one of one. He is, I've never been around a guy like him. So
Mhm.
it's been really cool.
Okay, so Scott, you alluded to already the volume of calls, and I'm sure, and all those kind of things. Do you try to set up rules? Do you have a certain way that you want to do your communication, and does
Yeah.
anybody observe them?
Oh, sure. I mean, look, we talked about this a year ago, and I'm more accepting of the reality of the job this year, but agents are doing their jobs. And so I respect that they have jobs to do and they've got clients to represent. And, if their client is saying, hey, call this guy, they have to call me. I get it. The best thing to do is to text me always. My number got out in the world last year. 90% of these phone numbers texting me every day. I don't even know who the heck they are. They don't, and they forget to introduce themselves in the text, which is hilarious. So I don't know who I'm texting half the time. And they'll say like, well, how do you feel about this player? How do you feel about that player? Here's kind of the rules. Text is better than call because I can leave it unread and then I can get back to you even if it's 11 p.m. And like a few agents were busting my chops last night because I was messaging them at midnight my time, but it's like sometimes that's my quiet time when I can
Got to
peek,
do.
peek at the film, look at the list, reply to all of them and say, hey, sorry it took me 6 hours. Yes, we like that player. He's probably stacked fifth or sixth deep though, so if he has a lesser game, you should probably have him take it because I don't know if he'll get in or not. Like those are, I will try to be as honest with everybody as possible. I think any agent who's you talk to would say Scott's incredibly communicative and straightforward with us. I never blow someone off or get nasty with them. The second thing is I'm not going to do an eval for you though. So like if you ask me a question like, how do you think of this guy? Do you think this guy will get drafted? It's like, man, that's not my job. Like, I don't know. I have no idea if he'll get drafted. Like, we look for high priority free agents at a minimum. So my staff's responsibility is this guy at least to top of the eighth. And what I mean by that is like the minute that draft's over, is there going to be a bidding war on that guy? If that's the case, he's probably for us. If he happens to, if six teams in a row need a center in the seventh round, then we've got a center, then he's probably getting drafted. And if none of them need a center, then he's going to priority free agent. That's just how it is. I can't predict that. So, don't have me try to analyze what round it's in. Like, I know it's tough as an agent. You got to decide if you want to invest 20, 25,000 in a guy. But you got to have your own people do that. We can't do that for you.
Sure.
But yeah, that would be the only rules basically is text over a call, and don't, and like, it is funny. And I know some of them are, it's urgency, right? They're trying to get SRAs, but it's like, people will text me at like 10 in the morning, and then they'll text me again at like 6 p.m. What do you think of my guy? It's like, it's the only guy I watched that day. It's like, I haven't even sat at my computer yet. What do you like? It takes a few days. If a guy wasn't on our radar, like at this point, if a guy's not on our radar, it's either because we thought he was too good and now he's dropping to us, which we did have. We had a guy like that today, an offensive lineman. I thought we had him penciled as like a 9 on our list, which would mean he's one of the top two games. And apparently he hasn't gotten an invite from either. And, yeah, we would take him, but we didn't have like a full eval on him because we thought he was just, no chance, early in the season. So that would be one example. And the other example is if we don't know who your guy is, it might mean that he's really not that good. And you're going to need to, make a different decision.
Mhm. I find in this business, sometimes your responsiveness is taken advantage of. If you get right back to someone and you
Oh
say,
yeah,
let's not get back to you, they start to think, well, you're the only one that I'm the only person that's a priority for you.
right.
Not that you are a priority for me, but I can't get back to you right now. And so
Yeah,
it's
and
difficult.
we get that too. Like I'll take calls from some guys. Like obviously, if we're gonna invite someone's guy, I try to invite through the agent where possible.
Right.
It's like okay, I invited their guy, and then they're like, oh hey, and what about this guy? And what about this guy? And what
Yeah.
about this guy? And now they're naming guys I know they don't even have SRAs with because
Right.
5 other agents have asked me about the same guy, and it's like you're just fishing to see if he's an invite, so you can decide if you want to spend 20 grand on him. Like I'm not, I get it.
Part of
And they're just doing their job. I don't take it personally, but
yeah,
all I ask is don't take it personally back when I can't get back to you for a day or two.
no doubt. Okay, so there are a couple features of this year's of the American Bowl that are a little different from others. One of them is an event you have planned for agents and scouts that
Yeah.
I may play a small role in.
Yes,
Talk
sir.
about that.
So excited. And it's one of our sponsors, who I wish I could announce, but they haven't formally given me permission to do that yet. But one of the bigger wealth management companies in the country is actually putting on an agent and scout mixer during the time that the players are in install. So after our welcome banquet and so forth, where we kind of give the players the lay of the land for the week, they go off to their respective team install meetings, meaning the players are completely inaccessible. Scouts can't interview them. Agents have no one to talk to. And given that those are relationships that really matter, a lot of people say, "Oh, I talked to this guy a lot," or "I talked to that guy a lot," or "Oh, I haven't seen this guy in forever." We decided to do kind of a scout and agent mixer featuring none other than ITL's Neil Stratton in the Caribe Royale hotels. So all credentialed scouts and agents will be allowed to come, have a beer, have some light food with you, and chat. They might have some pleasantries spoken by you at the front of the room if I can be so kind to ask you to do that. And everybody should be able to shake hands and get to know each other, mix and mingle and bond a little bit. And I know they're all there to work, but that's kind of a dead period. So I think it's a great opportunity. And as always, not to butter you up on your own thing, but I love what you do because you kind of bring some calm to the chaos of this industry. I think a little structure to an industry that's otherwise a little unstructured. And so it's really great that you're able to make it down and help lead that charge for the agents that will be down there and also the scouting community.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. Hopefully, you can have someone better next year. I don't. I want to ask you how far down the list you had to get to invite me, but we'll leave that for off the call.
Yeah, it was either you or it was either you or Roger Goodell, and Roger said he's like, I could make it, but it would be a little later. So go ahead and take Neil.
I'm always the fallback when Roger can't make it.
I know.
All right.
Next in line.
Okay. So some games have gone away from weigh-ins, Scott.
Yeah,
For different reasons. Some of them may be political, but y'all are still running with weigh-ins.
yeah.
What's the thought process there? Why you continue to have them?
You know, and I have mixed emotions on it too. Listen, I don't love there's some optics to the weigh-ins that I don't love is either, but I think that there is value to it. And I think that's why we have to do it. Like at the end of the day, scouts are coming down here, their teams and franchises are paying money to come down here and get to know players at a deeper level. And especially certain positions, like understanding a player's body type and certain measurements is really important. What we've done is we've tried to make it so that there's more dignity to the process, though. And so, and not to get into the weeds, but the players are completely clothed first and foremost. all the way up to the point that they're three away from the podium. They're also behind black pipe and draping, so there's no like, when they take off their, their pullovers and all that stuff, like they're not like undressing in front of everybody, right? So unless you're like basically like what do you say, like at bat on deck in the hole, unless you're in the hole, you're behind a curtain the whole time, so you're only up there for the time that you need to be. And then also wingspan, arm span, sorry, wingspan, arm length, and hand measurements are taken beforehand. So it also minimizes the time that they're on the stage, in the compression gear.
Mhm.
Um, so that also, I think, reduces kind of preserves a little more of the dignity. The room is also closed off only to credentialed scouts. So there's no media allowed in there.
Mhm.
There's no like observers and guests or hotel staff. So it limits it to the people who need to be in there seeing what's going on.
Mhm.
Um, and that's, so I don't know that there's a proper term for it, I guess, best of both worlds. We're trying to, we're trying to respect that the franchises need this. Many of them request it and need it, and it's useful to them, but also respect that, the players have like dignity and privacy and, modesty is all a thing. And I don't want to be, beyond what's necessary. We try to, you know, wrap it up quick and, get done what we need to do and then move on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I know it's appreciated. It is kind of a weird thing, but it's an important part of the process. I know scouts
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Believe me, I can see why people think it's weird. I'm not
Of course.
naive. It's just,
Of
it
course.
is a useful part of the process for them.
How do you balance? One thing that I always struggle with was I liked a guy, people that I knew liked guys, and then I went to NFL teams and they wanted someone else. How do you
Yeah.
balance that? At the end of the day, the NFL teams are kind of your customers.
Yeah, right. I don't have a uniform answer for that. What I can say is that all those things influence. And I got a quarterback right now that's a smaller conference QB that everybody's, not everybody, but there's a hype train for. And my scouting people, including me, I'm a quarterback coach by trade. I thought throws the ball pretty, kind of a one read, you know, RPO glance type guy, like has a big arm, live arm, but the backup quarterbacks at a lot of schools have live arms too. That doesn't put him in an all-star game. So I asked a NFL scout last night, I said, well, why does everybody keep coming back to me telling me I got to take this guy? I don't think there's any chance he's better than some of these SEC guys I'd be passing on. And he said, well, the thing is, they've seen those SEC guys play against better competition all year. They have the book closed on them. This guy, they've only seen in his smaller school environment. So having him come and would matter. So, and I think about it last year, just an example, Neil, I had a guy named Hunter Deckers. Hunter was a Iowa State QB, got, mixed up betting $20 on a women's basketball game, got removed from the school and had to go play 2 years at Iowa Western Community College in
Mhm.
JUCO. I think Hunter's on the practice squad for the Saints. Don't quote me
Was
on
for a
that.
while. I don't know if he still is, but he certainly
Yeah.
has bounced
But he
around a lot.
definitely made some money this year in the league, on practice squad. Why did I take him over a bunch of other quarterbacks? Believe me, I took a lot of heat for that. I told him, I said, you guys think that's bad. Wait do you see that he throws with his left arm? But but it ended up working out. And so I think it's a balancing act a little bit. And I'd love to tell you that I have a uniform policy. The reality is we have to believe that this guy could make a roster. And in the case of quarterbacks, that's me. In the
Mhm.
case of O linemen, that's Matt Limegrover and Mike Tice, my coaches there. In the case of a wide receiver, we'll go to Coach Kirksey and say, look, you coach Jerry Rice, Terrell Owens, Andre Johnson. Does this guy have what it takes?
Mhm.
And that's ultimately what it is. And if the NFL scouts hype a guy up enough and we have a late option, yeah, I want to accommodate the customer, but you know, sometimes the hype train can get out of control. And there's been a couple guys that, tried to get fan clubbed into the All-Star games historically that, you know, it's just that no one wants to tell them the truth that they're not going to play.
Yeah. And that happens every year. That's part of the process. How do you manage your evaluators, Scott? You've got scouts on staff that you
Yeah.
work with. Is there a process where they submit guys to you? You watch the film? Do you have people that are kind of over others? Is it kind of a national in an area? How does that work?
No, yeah, we don't have that much hierarchy, so it's pretty simple. So everybody got two conferences except me. I got one. I just took the MAC because I was most familiar with it. The balance of my full-time scouts took two conferences, And they worked with the directors of player personnel and NFL liaisons to, work through their ABC lists early in the season, watch them, through weeks 1 to 6. Then we started stacking, and then we started comparing notes with Drew and Eric because obviously, it's easy to look at, Carson Beck and say he's good at football. I don't need to, doesn't have to be a brain surgeon to see that. So we started to get a stack of, okay, well, who are the 12 that are going to go to those 2 games? And where do we fit into that picture? So, some names have been around a long time. John Peterson, JP, has, been
JP.
scouting a really long time. He's on our staff. He was over the Big 12 and I think the Sun Belt. Brian Adams goes by BA. He was in the league for 35 years. He had the Big 10 and I want to say Conference USA. Chris Gonzalez had the ACC and I forget what else. And then Christian Covio had the Mountain West and the SEC. I had the MAC. I guess by deduction, that means Christian had the AAC and the ACC. So we went through them that way, and then when we start getting into battles, ultimately for year one, I'll make all final decisions just for year one. That'll evolve next year when we got a better rhythm. Um, but if they propose a player and they're like, okay, I mean, use one we've already committed, but Jamari Taylor, running back for Virginia. So Chris Gonzalez, my ACC scout, would have said, hey, I think Jamari's a guy. I think he's going to play in the league. He's a HBCU guy for 4 years, first year playing in the Power Four, and he's crushing it. Took his team to the conference championship, beat out a guy that they were pretty passionate about in Harrison Whaley. We should watch him. I watch him. I talk to their DPP, Justin Sparrows, or their assistant GM, or whatever it is, and kind of get a pulse on where he fits. And then we extend him an invitation. So it kind of goes from, and then if we're really like torn, we'll put some cross checks in place too, or I'll ask the position coaches. Like linemen, I'll ask position coaches a lot just because that's not necessarily my strong suit.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, so not a big complex system per se. We meet on Monday nights for a few hours on Zoom and knock it out that way.
Got it. Okay. So one of the biggest challenges, there's no other way to say it, is dealing with agents and dealing with agencies. We've talked about that a little bit already
Yeah, sure,
on
sure.
this here. What are some of the egregious asks that agents have that you've just kind of got to shrug your shoulders and say, what in the world are you thinking? Have you had those kind of experiences? And Scott, are there
Yeah.
agencies that you are maybe reluctant to deal with because of your experiences with them in the past?
So there's yeah, here I'll give you kind of a list. Here's 3 things. One, these football games cannot exist. These all-star experiences cannot exist without a game at the end. So like I think everyone needs to kind of stop and understand that. And like anarchy means nobody works together, everyone's out for themselves. Okay? If agents want to live in a world of anarchy, at the end of the day, they all lose. They all have to lean in a little bit with their players and make their players play in these games. Now, if you're injured, you're injured. That's different. No one would play in a game injured. But if you're worried about being injured, I get it. But like, that's the profession. So like, you have to play in the game. If you don't play in the game, there's no sponsor money. If
Right,
there's no sponsor money, there's no game.
right.
So that means there's no interviews. This stuff just ceases to exist. So the first thing I would say is agents that beg me for a player to come into the game, we let them in and then they pull them out 3 days before the game. Um, that doesn't go unremembered.
Right.
That's a low integrity move. And, I get it. There's times where I get it. I'm not a mercenary. Dude separated his shoulder, badly strained a hamstring. But Coach Billick says if you're on the ground, you're wrong. And knock on wood, in 4 seasons, we have had no bad injuries at these All-Star games. I've knocked on wood there.
Mhm.
Um, and it's because of the way we choose to practice. We practice like professionals do. In the games, we quick whistle. All the players know. In that first meeting, we say, guys, we're not kamikazeing. If you have a free shot on a guy, you do not take it. You pull up. The game doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't have to win that bad in an all-star game, right? Like everyone knows you would have got him. You tag his hip, you move on. You make a clean hit, you move on.
Mhm.
And I think the players generally all believe in that because the players are leaning in on each other. They're saying, hey, we all want to get out of this and get drafted, go get paid. So we're cool. So when the agents don't, it is a bit frustrating because it's like, all right, guys, come on now. Like you gotta help us. The second one would be coming at me like we're family and saying, hey man, you owe me or something. Like I get a lot of texts like that, like, come on, man, I really need this guy in the game. And I'm like, I'm sure you do. Like, and every agent has like 12 guys that they could say that about. Like, we have to pick the best ones. And, uh, to that end, I'll get people saying, well, I got this guy and he's better than so and so that you already invited. And it's like, in your opinion, yes, I hear you. And maybe those are close. Like sometimes those are close arguments that I'm not going to exhaust myself fighting with them. But trying to win an argument with me over who was better, you know, obviously they're going to have a ludicrous lens of bias. They're investing five figures in a guy. Um, you know, so those are probably like the big things. But generally speaking, Neil, like not to talk out of both sides of my mouth, this year and really by the end of last year, the agent community has been so much better. Like most of the agents I work with have helped me get their guys to accept their invitations quickly, fill out their paperwork quickly, get registered for the game. They get what's going on. I'm straight shooting with all them. If you guys get a Senior Bowl invite, Shrine Bowl invite, and it's, before I book their travel, go play in those games, man. By all means, I tell my own son to do that. So it's all good. Like I don't get sensitive about all that. So provided agents operate that way, we have great we're great.
You gave me a hard stop, and I want to honor that, Scott. Before we get off here, if people want to follow where the invitations are and what's coming out, I know that they probably already know your social media accounts, but let's hit them with that one more time before we.
Yeah. So everything is the American Bowl, like the THE American Bowl. So Instagram at the American Bowl, Twitter at the American Bowl, website theamericanbowl.com. So everything is pretty simple. And with regards to player invitations, I would say, just remember, just because you see it on the internet, doesn't mean that's all that's there. So, when people are out there saying, well, they didn't invite this guy, they didn't invite that guy, you don't know that. We might have, and they just haven't accepted it yet, or we're being respectful of their coaches. As an example, I think we got permission to do it, but we were going to hold back. We did get a great player from Navy accepted last night, Landon Robinson, the D tackle. And I don't know if that made its way to the internet yet. I think they gave us permission this morning to put that out there, but they got to go beat Army this week, so we were going to hold that back out of respect. And I think they decided that it's okay, it doesn't hurt anybody. So those are things where we've got a lot of teams where we're saying, well, just wait, let's let them get through a coaching change, or let's let them, all those kinds of things. So it's a moving target.
Well, one more thing we can agree on is beating Army is very, very important, Scott. Definitely on board with you there. Scott, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck in year one. I know everything's going to go great. And I can't wait to see everyone in Orlando in January. Really appreciate you being on today, buddy.
My pleasure. I'll see you soon.
Agents, before we go, make sure you go check out Agent Live 360. It is at agentlive360.com for everything you need for your agency, from players to coaches, managing profiles, tracking invoices, sending invoices, getting paid, keeping up on every element of your entire agency. Notification emails, file folder storage, ROI, transactions, invoices, calendar, contracts, teams, reps, everything all in one spot for you. That is Agent Live 360. Hop on, request a demo. Yours truly will hop on, walk you through it. I can promise you we will talk some football as well. Sign up now with code TRIAL90 for a 90-day, 3-month trial at just $10 a month for Agent Live 360. That's at agentlive360.com. Go check it out now.